Hello everyone, it is Evan from the Trade Risk on Saturday, October 31st, here with a weekend Halloween special spooky scary market recap. We are first going to analyze the current market environment. We're going to look at some other markets, some leading sectors, and then get into some individual names and a few trade ideas. So a few announcements before we kick off today's video. The first, I want to wish everyone a happy Halloween. I hope everyone gets their dose of candy and sugar and scary movies in this weekend. Second, I want to remind everyone, just if you like these videos, do subscribe to the YouTube channel, or I also do a newsletter, free newsletter that goes out on weekends. Sunday, I try and do some unique content in there. So head to the Trade Risk, sign up for that all the way down on the homepage or at the end of any article. You can find some different ways to join that any way you would like. And then third, I also am hosting a webinar coming up in a few weeks, so you can sign up for that. Also, traderisk.com at the top right corner. If you like what you see here, they're all great resources for a little more information. None of them cost you a dime. They're all free. And I hope they provide some value for you guys. So with all of that said, let's jump into today's video, and we'll start with the SPY ETF. Let's take a look at a monthly chart first, because we did close out the month of October with an impressive 8.5% gain to the upside, breaking back into this previous chop that we were in for 2015. So the bulls getting it done for sure this month of October. If we go back to a daily chart, we ended the week off on a little bit of a down note, all things considered. We still closed up on the week, I think 20 basis points of progress to the upside in the SPY, but we did close on the lows Friday. We took out Thursday's lows, and Thursday was a very quiet sort of inside, not quite an inside day, but very narrow range day in general. So we did we did close on the lows. What I'm looking at first off next week is, do we see continuation lower? Now, this trend that we've been in, this recent uptrend that we've been in for the month of October, we have consistently just risen above this fast 8-period exponential moving average every time we've come down there, which has only been twice really. We have found support, buyers stepped in, so that's the first line that I would be looking at next week. Do we see continuation lower? Do we see buyers step in? And that'll start to give us some clues as to whether or not this trend is weakening. We certainly could use a pullback, but we don't have to. The scenarios that I guess we could outline here, if we want to keep an open mind, is the bullish scenario would be we're marching higher until we hit all-time highs or retest at least the top end of this range, maybe make marginal new highs, and then consolidate or pull back. The bearish scenario is, well, I could say that maybe we just topped out on this candle yesterday. There hasn't been maybe a lot of talk. There's been there hasn't been maybe as much participation to the upside, but I don't know if anybody's perhaps calling a top here, and I certainly don't want to get into that debate argument or to even say that I agree with it. But again, we're talking open mind discussions here. Maybe we're topping out here and we continue to roll over until the end of the year. Maybe this is all one big push higher, which ultimately fails, makes a higher low in the grand scheme of things, looking at a monthly chart or a weekly chart. Maybe this is some higher low right here, and we start to roll over, and that's sort of all she wrote. Again, I'm not picking a side here. I'm just keeping a roadmap of sort of the extreme bull and bear scenarios here. I think, again, you got to take it one day at a time, and as I recommended earlier, I'm going to just be looking next week to see if we do see further continuation and adjust every day accordingly. Now, I think when you start to think of these two extreme scenarios, there's a market you can look to right now, which I think is a good one that'll give you clues as to which perhaps extreme we are moving to, and that is the IWM. And I mentioned this the other day. I think this is an important market because it hasn't done anything, and this index hasn't done anything. This grouping of stocks, which usually is portrayed with high risk appetite and healthy markets, they've been in a downtrend and more recently consolidating. So Thursday we had a slight glimpse that perhaps this behavior is changing. Perhaps we're going to start trending higher. We're going to start breaking out of this range. Now, so far that hasn't been true, because following up on Thursday and then on Friday, we saw a rejection sort of back into this range. So the timing right now hasn't worked out. It's not there yet. And I, for one, did try and play this breakout on Wednesday. I bought this bar here, and we got stopped out. We took a small loss on it on Friday, and we're just keeping a close eye on it. And if it does start to perk back up, I would be interested yet again to try and buy that breakout. So that's where I'm spending a lot of time focusing on right now, because I think this does sort of give us some clues as to perhaps what happens here in the big picture. And again, nothing says we can't just chop around here for a few weeks into the end of the year, or just do nothing interesting, and that's obviously a scenario as well. So that's sort of what I'm looking at. And again, if we look at the Qs, of course these are the leaders here, so it's always interesting to see what will these do. We made new marginal all-time highs now. Will we just pull back? Will we come back and fill this gap? Are we going to continue to march higher? What happens? So we're at an interesting spot on a few different markets. I think the Qs and the IWM are certainly more interesting and at more of an inflectionary point than perhaps the SPY is, because the SPY is just sort of dead center of this big range. And I think that's a way that I would be judging markets and just analyzing them going forward. Now, if we look at some other markets, let's move into some other interesting things. USO oil back into this range that it was in for a few months, for most of September and October, and we're back to just kind of moving sideways here. I don't think anything too interesting has happened. Again, I talked about the possibility of this being a higher low, so we made a low here at the end of August. Perhaps this is a higher low. Again, we don't know that yet. We can try and play it as one, maybe build long exposure and shoot against this low, but until we start to really clear these highs, we don't really have confirmation of that yet, but something to keep in mind, an open mind about. UNG had a nice little sharp 3.26% move on Friday, basically just negated, basically negated the bar here from Thursday, which we gapped higher on Thursday, and then we engulfed and closed lower, which is very, very bearish, and then we sort of reversed that and closed higher. So we'll have to see what happens here. Again, still a damage chart, downtrend, not too interesting. TLT, this one broke below our 123 zone that we've been watching. Then again, Friday had an inside day, strong close on the highs. So this one, again, still not an interesting market, moving sideways. Let's see if we can get a thrust lower below 121. Maybe that sets in a real sort of directional trend that may be underway. Gold, this one got beat up a little bit. This closed back under this interesting area here, so that's not a good sign for the bulls right now. With gold, you'd want to see it quickly try and recover and get back above 110, 111, get back above these levels sooner than later. Silver, similar situation. We're retesting it. We're back below $15, so a little bit of weakness here in some of these commodities, or at least the metals. So we'll have to keep an eye on those going forward into next week. Now, as far as sectors go, we had a lot of participation amongst virtually all the sectors, but what's still holding up pretty strong is XLB. Tough to budge, even with Friday's, and the SPY being down and the small caps being down. The material names still held up there. We closed green, still holding strong, so definitely holding out there. XLY, so the discretionary ETF as well. This one is at all-time highs again, and this is very constructive here as well. Not really budging, not really seeing any signs of weakness. And then finally, the industrials are holding in there pretty well as well. XLI, it's at a pretty interesting point here, right around 54.75 or so. So we want to see it try and punch through this level, but still holding up pretty damn well, all things considered. And XLE, it's got that look like it wants to go. It's been it had this nice thrust up and then this little kind of flag sideways. And 69, 60, these pivot highs, which were also highs from August where we rolled over right around here. I think that'll be an interesting level. So we'll have to see here. XLE has potential to start to continue to push, and of course a lot of that's weighted on USO. If USO wants to climb to the top end of this range, you could get this breakout happening in XLE. So I think that's also an interesting one to have on watch. Now, if we look at some individual names, we'll go through these pretty quick. Apple, this one's trending higher again. It cleared out this 116 area. Again, it's coming back into this overhead supply. I think stick with the trend for now, and just keep an eye on risk. You want to see it continue to hold above 116. Google continues to march higher, needs rest, or could use certainly some rest. Had a down day on Friday, and we'll have to see if that leads to more of a pullback. But for now, very, very elevated. Tough to get on board that. Same thing with Amazon, and even more so. It's at all-time highs, and it's very extended, but the squeeze and the urgency is still very much there in these two names. So leaders for sure, but tough to get on board at these prices. Netflix has continued to now find support down here. It's making its way back to the top end of this range. I think it's classic, pretty range-bound behavior right now. Probably a few more points of upside here, and then you start to look at these levels around 115, and that's where I would start to get a little more hesitant on chasing until we see further either sideways or convincing breakout action above this level. Tesla has been struggling. This one's got earnings coming up soon, I believe. Coming back down. Looks like it's just got a date with Destiny down here to retest these 180, 190 area that held as support for a couple of years now, actually. So we'll have to see. Earnings is certainly a catalyst on deck there. GoPro, this thing got hammered after earnings. Certainly, the earnings weren't up to par, and they weren't priced in despite all of this down move here. So continues to struggle. It's at the big round $25, which I believe was the IPO price. Still bearish trend, bearish action all around. Just haven't seen any of that story change yet. So still looks like the path of least resistance is clearly lower. Alibaba, this one complete opposite now. This one's been in kind of squeeze mode here ever since bottoming out down here around 58, taking out this resistance around 68, and now taking out this what was support around $80 is now marching higher. So Alibaba, this one again looking like it wants to turn into a leadership role here. But it is tough to chase this where it is right now. So we'll have to see. I mean, it looks great, but tough to chase that one. Finally, Facebook earnings soon. Potent down day on Friday, but it's had a really strong move recently. Even with an almost 3% down move, it's still just barely testing this 8-period exponential moving average. So let's see if buyers step in. Earnings are on deck, so keep that on watch. Twitter starting to roll over, giving these they're not gains back from Wednesday, but giving this gap fill back from Wednesday. Again, clear support, very clear line in the sand right around $28. So fast approaching it. Let's see if buyers step in for another test of that. Don't want to see that retest in such short order, but we'll have to see what happens with Twitter. Now, a few ideas to have on watch going forward. BNED, this is the first one. Recent spinoff here, IPO earlier this year, a few months ago, really. And it had a nice week for sure. If we go to a weekly chart, you can see up 17%, taking out this cluster of highs from its immediate IPO. Go back to a daily, and you can see this one's looking good. It's obviously tough to chase this, but look to see if this one will set up, go sideways, flag out for a few days. Maybe you get a second entry for a new leg higher there. Looks pretty interesting. Next is HW. Go to a weekly chart, you can see, and this is in the materials sector, which is what we want to be in, because that is one of the leading sectors, like we pointed out earlier. $21 or so has been sort of the lid on price for the past few months. So let's see if that one continues. This is a weekly chart again, so needs a little more time, needs a little more convincing, but breakout there could be interesting. Next is CHTR. I think I've talked about this one a little bit. Again, weekly chart is clear to see this one. 193, 194. Look at all these tails up here. Every time price gets above here, the sellers take control. So let's see if they can change that. Let's see if we can get a breakout, close above that area. That one would be pretty interesting to play. And then finally, CDK. been consolidating nicely. Again, this one's not quite ready yet, but it's been in a nice uptrend for most of its life here as a publicly traded stock. It's been now consolidating pretty quietly. Needs to get back above $52, so it's certainly not ready yet, but something to keep on watch. It's been getting pretty tight here, so let's see what happens with CDK in the near future. So that's all I have for this video. Again, happy Halloween to everyone. And if you're interested, check out the webinar, check out the newsletter, subscribe on YouTube, do all three, and I'd love to hear your feedback. So thank you for watching, and as always, I will catch you next time.